Thank you, Mr. Javed Jabbar. 2 years ago, Dr. Ishrat Hussain took over as the Dean and Director of the Institute of Business Administration in Karachi. Earlier, he held the office of Chairman, National Commission for Government Reforms in the Prime Minister's Secretariat. In that capacity, he completed a comprehensive report on the reorganization of the government structure, processes, and human resource management policies. He understands what reform entails. His rich experience of years at the World Bank and as Governor State Bank of Pakistan puts him in a unique position to review choke pipes with a perspective very different to what we've heard so far. Sir, we look forward to benefit from your lucid insight to the work of the author, Dr. Ishrat Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Jaffer. It's a very difficult act to follow, Mr. Jaffer. And I don't know why the sequence he came before me, because I can neither match his eloquence, nor his wit, nor his sense of humor. So you have to bear with me for the rest of the few minutes. The advantage of being the last speaker is that what I was going to say has been said by all my preceding speakers, so I can be very brief, because that is something which I am going to attempt to do. I first like to say that Sanya Nishtar has taught me a lot of material and stuff which she reflected in this book during our association in the National Commission of Government Reforms. The chapter which we have designed about the healthcare reforms owes its intellectual gratitude to the work which has been done and which is reflected in this book by Dr. Sanya Nishtar. So I owe a personal sense of gratitude to her for being a student of hers, but at the same time a beneficiary as far as the healthcare reforms are concerned. The best compliment which I can think about this work is given by Dean Julio Frank, who has said in his foreword that the most important impediment to reform in Pakistan is the country's public sector institutional culture, which is focused on short-term goals as opposed to evidence-based, long-term, enduring actions with potential to bring sustainable change. And this is what Sanya Nishtar is trying to do, to get away from the short-term, politically expedient actions which every government wishes to take for the sake of glory, of aggrandizement, of other motivating factors, but to lay down a highly researched, robust, and solid platform on which the healthcare delivery system can be built. And unlike most health economists whom I have seen or worked with, or the health professionals, the distinguishing feature of this book is that it contextualizes the healthcare in the larger socio-economic context. It takes the whole governance structure of the country and shows that you cannot really have an island of excellence in any particular sector without looking at the larger picture. She adopts the same approach as far as the health financing is concerned. Coming from a health professional, when she talks about debt limitation, fiscal responsibility, broadening the tax base, pro-poor growth, overall transparency, for a moment I was lost that whether I'm listening to an economist or to a health professional. This is the broad parameter. If we don't understand that, we're never going to get anywhere. So the two pillars which I have picked out of this book, which I would like to emphasize, is the governance structure of Pakistan, which has to be completely revamped in order to provide a conducive environment for healthcare delivery system to function. And the second is the whole health financing nexus, where people take these facts about so much percentage of GDP is being spent on this or that. Ladies and gentlemen, even if that money was being spent on the welfare of the targeted population of this country, which deserves free public health care, we would be much better off. But even that money is misallocated, is misappropriated, is misused for the sake of a small segment of the population, which I, in my book, have called the elites of this country. The doors of the civil hospital and the Jinnah hospital are open for me anytime. All the expensive medicines are available to me at my beck and call, although I can afford to pay for that. And as Javed said, we can all fly to the best places in the world in order to get the health care. We are depriving that old man who has brought his son from the far-off area to the civil hospital and who doesn't have the money to pay to the peon of the emergency ward to be able to enter the emergency ward. So even if you take 0.76% of GDP, that is a very large sum in billions of dollars, billions of rupees. And if you allocate that for those for whom this is the necessity for survival, for the death and the life, we would be better off. But this is not what is happening. The fact of the matter is that there is a connivance between the government officials and the suppliers of the drugs. You inflate the bill, and having been in the finance department of the Sindh government, where I was in charge of the procurement of drugs, I have documented the kind of mischief which is done with the connivance of the industry and the bureaucrats, including the finance department, the supplies department, the industry. You have fake drugs which are being sold at the price which is being charged, which is as high as the patented drugs. Even the essential drugs, which should be about 95% for the normal care of the poor populations, are just not simply available. They are sold in the drugstores operating outside the hospitals. So the question is not increase the allocation of funds for the health sector. It is how to modify the structure under which the healthcare delivery system is performing. And Sania Nishtar very rightly points out the history of the health reforms, that we do not have spent even 2 years or 3 years in experimenting with different models. She says in the 1997, we had the Family Health Project, in which we had the district health authorities, district health government, district health management teams, which were introduced. And the government came in power in 1999 and just completely demolished the whole system without giving it a chance to be even evaluated whether it was successful or not. And we go back to square one. and the new government comes in. For 2-3 years, they are groping in dark, they don't know what to do. Then they come up with the Rahim Yar Khan experiment, where the services are contracted out to an NGO, and then the health department wakes up that they are completely out of the loop, and they convince the political leadership that we should have a Gujarat model whereby the district health officer takes over the basic health unit in the rural health center, and all that work which was going on in the Rahim Yar Khan project, which was successful, was completely replaced by a completely new model. And that model, after the change of this government, has disappeared. So we start from de novo, we start from square one, without having gone through what she, in very lucid terms, and I would like to quote her, that you introduce the new projects without making any evaluation of the evidence which has either supported that experiment or the pilot model which you have done, and you start from scratch one. So all the costs which have been incurred on the previous projects and the previous models and experiments have also been incurred, and the benefits are zero. And this is the waste of scarce resources which fall under the 0.76% of GDP. That you are incurring expenditures without getting any benefits for the general population. So the lack of continuity in the health implementation of whatever model you have is one of the major impediments she has identified in the book, which I think requires serious attention by civil society, by the media, which are doing some great work in order to have the awareness that this business as usual cannot sustain, cannot lead us to the future. Let the previous models, previous experiments be evaluated in a scientific basis, on the basis of evidence, and then fine-tune them, but don't throw the baby with the bathwater. The second issue I want to bring to your notice is that health financing is an insoluble problem. Even in the United States, some of you might have been following the recent developments, where 42 million Americans in the richest country of the world without any health insurance. And President Obama brought in this legislation, which is a semi-nationalized insurance system he has brought in, although his public sector pillar was completely demolished by the opponents. But that, even under the best circumstances, will cover 32 million Americans, despite the fact that the governance structure and the delivery systems are quite, efficient there. But it costs them 14% to 16% of GDP. That means that with the public debt rising to 100% of GDP, the American taxpayer is going to be under serious difficulty for at least some times to come before the benefits of the new health bill starts growing.